Good morning and welcome to Retirement Tax Matters. I'm Adam Reed. This is Garrett Crawford, our resident CFP. How are we feeling this morning, Garrett?
We're in February, and the sickness stuff is going around. I was not immune. Usually it's my kids. This time I was the weak link, and so actually I told my family and my kids, I was like, this is the best kind of sick. It was just kind of a sniffle and maybe a little bit of a sore throat, but I just got to rest for the past couple of days. But full night of sleep last night, ready to go.
I'll probably have to start like my own parenting podcast 'cause I feel like my kids get coming to this a lot, but my 6-month-old has something right now, cold and I actually don't mind being sick. It's kind of nice to just lay back and relax for a day or two, and my wife waits on me, and the kids will kind of give me some space. But seeing a 6-month-old be sick is like the saddest thing ever. They don't know what's going on. They're like, "Why is my nose running? I'm coughing," and he's pretty pitiful right now. So
I remember those days.
Yep.
Those are hard.
He's on the mend though. So, well, I think a cool topic for today, something that is, I think we're going to kind of link over into a popular podcast. If you ever heard of Dave Ramsey, maybe you've heard of him. Yeah. If you're watching a financial podcast, if you haven't come across Dave Ramsey, your algorithm's crazy. I'd love to learn what's going on behind the scenes with your algorithm. But
yeah,
Dave Ramsey talks a lot about his debt-free scream, and so these people will call in and they've paid off all their debt, or they paid off their house, and they just get to yell, and just this release of energy, this release of emotion. And so we're going to kind of piggyback off that. Dave loves being debt-free. We talk a lot about Roth conversion planning, and so maybe there's a parallel to that in our world and what we talk about with Roth conversion. But tell me a little bit about, if you've seen the thumbnail, tell me about the tax-free scream when we're talking specifically about Roth conversions.
Yeah. So it's funny you mentioned that, because I feel like as of late, Facebook, Instagram, wherever, I'm getting a lot of Dave Ramsey content. And so I probably wouldn't agree with him on every single thing, but overall, we had to do another conversation, another podcast topic about this. I was thinking about it this morning, but we're kind of in an AI revolution where knowledge is becoming a little bit of a commodity. It's like, well, how do you do a Roth conversion? Well, just hop on, ChatGPT, Google Gemini. It'll tell you, 20 steps to do a Roth conversion. And I think that'll be an interesting space to navigate as a financial planner over the coming decades. And my hot take is, I think people always want trusted advice from real people, and it's hard to get answers. But to give Dave Ramsey credit, not like he needs it from me, but I think he's a master at like psychology and giving people advice. And so there's a lot of knowledge out there, but he's able to get people to move from point A to point B. And sometimes it's not always math motivated. And so I think our industry a lot of times is too math motivated. And coming into the industry 13 years ago with an engineering degree and an analytical mindset, I was math motivated. And so as I've done this longer, and I've seen, that life doesn't happen inside of a calculator, I think one of the impetuses of starting Retirement Tax Matters and helping people with tax planning and doing it for high net worth retirees between 2 and 8 million is this was like one of my first analogies or things that I thought about, a few years ago, where Roth conversions are very similar to this idea of paying off your house. And so in 2020, I bet a lot of you all out there, I know I owned a house, and when COVID hit, maybe one of the best things that came out of that were that interest rates dropped to historically low levels. And I remember I refinanced my house twice during that time, and now have a 30-year fixed mortgage below 3%, significantly below 3%. And that was awesome. And I think when we bought our house in 2015, I think we were at like 3.6%. And I know everybody out there listening, you talk about, well, our mortgage rates were 11, 12% when we bought our first house. And you don't even, you can't even imagine what that was like. Y'all are complaining about 6 or 7%. I get it. I think people that have graduated out of college and looking for a house, I think it's just a hard environment. But this idea of being, well, I guess what I'm trying to say is what came out of that, and a lot of people out there, probably listeners, have a mortgage rate that is sub 3%. And so we start kind of getting cute with the financial math. And it's like, well, hey, if I've got a mortgage at 2.8% and my savings account is letting me earn 4%, why would I do any prepayments on my mortgage and try to pay that off faster when I can leverage a higher rate of return elsewhere? To which Dave Ramsey would say, quit playing with the numbers, pay your house off, move on with your life, start making better financial decisions. And it's really, I think he's a master at getting people to where they need to be, which is, debt-free so that they can think clearer, their life is simpler. But I say all that, we can get easily trapped into thinking that everything is about leverage or, how do we make the most money at the end of our life? And we kind of forget about, the return on hassle that we talk a lot about, like how much effort are you having to go through just to squeak out 0.1% extra rate of return at your savings account or your CD account. And that's a long introduction to this idea of Roth conversions. And, I haven't read about this anywhere. I don't really see it talked about. But as excited as those people get for the debt-free screen, when they go from being in debt, maybe working multiple jobs, living below their means, all of the baby steps in Dave Ramsey, they get to this point, the culmination of, I want to have all my debts paid off, and they're excited. And that's like the great entry point into having a better relationship with money under the Dave Ramsey. So pivoting to what we're talking about here today, I think there's a strong correlation with Roth conversions and this idea that money that's in your 401k that could have grown to $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, you don't actually own all that. You have a debt to the IRS. That may be 20% of that 401k is theirs, 25%, 30%. I don't know what your situation is, but you don't own it all. And in my journey as a financial planner, I remember I used to, in my early days, I searched everywhere on the internet. What is the right answer? When should people, at what tax rate should people do Roth conversions? Is that 22, 24, 25%? Once you get into those higher 30%, should you be considering Roth conversions? And a lot of times you'll get very arbitrary answers on that. There's a lot of pro-traditional IRA people out there that I really respect, and they have a great argument for why you should keep traditional IRA money. But I think, and I think I'm coming to this theory over the past few years of working with clients, kind of like people that pay off their home and they're debt-free. I've never had somebody come back in my office and say, man, I wish I hadn't paid off my house. Usually it's like, I don't owe anything to anybody. I own my house. And there is a psychological benefit of that. And so very similarly, I see that with Roth conversions. People come in, maybe they can't do it all in 1 year. Most oftentimes they can't. But they begin this journey, a pilgrimage from taking that money that's in a traditional IRA that's growing with a tax liability. They pay taxes on it, and they feel more in control. Their life is simple, and they love this idea that, for the rest of their life, it's going to grow tax-free. It's going to go to their beneficiaries for an additional 10 years tax-free. And I could probably keep going, but the idea here is I think Roth conversions have a similar psychological benefit of paying off your house.
Yeah, and I think to look a little bit more kind of why we say that and what that looks like, to double click on, it's almost like I've heard you say with clients, the IRS, it's like a partnership in a traditional IRA. And so we're almost like profit sharing. As the money grows, not all that's ours. Some of that's theirs. And so help me understand a little bit kind of the different thoughts you have on maybe a $5 million portfolio for like a tangible example. What does that look like in a traditional IRA versus what that would look like in a Roth IRA, and how you think through that as you're helping a client?
Yeah, so I would say that, again, I'd probably say not all that $5 million is yours, and you are going to have required minimum distributions that are based on the balance of that $5 million IRA, and you're going to be forced to take those distributions whether you like it or not. And as much as I love Roth conversions, if that's all you got is traditional IRA, it may not be as advantageous for other people. But I think that's the part that I would like to double click on, at least from a math perspective, in that a lot of times I think financial planners, I think you out there as listeners, we can get drawn into this idea. Okay, I've got X amount of dollars in an IRA. A home run situation would be like for somebody that's got a precipitous drop in income for a little while. So maybe they made gobs of money while they were working, but they've decided to delay Social Security for both spouses until age 70. They're both retired. Their income is dropping, and their income bracket is lower than it will be in the future because of RMDs. A home run scenario would be like somebody that's like crazily dropped into a 12% tax bracket, and 32 is staring them in the face down the road. And like it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that maybe they should be doing significant Roth conversions, maybe up to the 32% tax bracket, to optimize that time. But I would say a lot of high net worth retirees with large IRA account balances, the situation is not usually that. It's usually harder. Like, hey, I'm in the 24% tax bracket, because again, just because you have a high net worth doesn't mean you have a high income. In fact, I say a lot of our high net worth clients, they live on a lot less than what they could live on. And so you get in this murky middle where you're in that 22 to 24% tax bracket. And if you convert more of your IRA, you end up either maybe you trickle into that 32% tax bracket, and you're like, well, why would I do that? And so my point would be, how would you evaluate a Roth conversion if what if we can't project out exactly what your life is going to look like, but what if it was about the same? What if you would have kept it in the IRA versus what if you would have taken money and converted it to the IRA? If it was about the same, I would say the person that converted to the Roth IRA was happier in the journey along the way, because they didn't have to watch Congress meet about taxes. They don't have to watch the national debt, all that kind of stuff. And so the journey, I think, is easier for that person, and I think they felt in more control along the way. And then my next scenario would be like, what if you ended up lower than the numbers here, but had you not done a Roth conversion, you would have ended up with $100,000, $150,000 more dollars, $300,000 more dollars at the end of your life. What if, had you done the Roth conversion route, you would have ended up with a little bit less money overall, but again, it was maybe simpler. The journey felt better. And then you also have this 10-year period where beneficiaries get an additional 10-year tax-free growth window where they don't have to take RMDs. And I think for the beneficiaries, that's a much better experience. And I'll have to link to an episode where we talked about that. But my point here is that it's not a calculator question, and I think retirees would be wise to consider the psychological benefit that a Roth conversion does. And if you're stuck on the fence about it, I would just remember this analogy: people that pay off their house, they usually don't regret it. And I think if you're using this tax return driven financial planning where you understand maybe in the summer where your income might end up in December, you can actually feel really confident about the amount that you want to convert to Roth. And if you got a 20-year time frame ahead of you, not only could that be fun, but I think you'll find yourself in a better position down the road.
Yeah, I think to put a bow on it is, I think the 0, 10, 12% tax range, it almost feels like a no-brainer. Unless there's a very specific situation. 32% and up feels like, okay, hey, we need to have a very tactical reason. We need to be thinking through this. Maybe the beneficiary is going to be a high tax bracket as well, whatever it may be. But that 22 to 24% tax bracket, which is funny, whereas a lot of people would say, oh, it's just a wash, just leave it, let it grow. I think what we're saying is we actually feel like the psychological benefits, and again, not specific recommendations, but generally speaking, we would lean more into Roth conversions, where some people may shy away from it because we've seen that tax-free scream, if you will, of, oh, this is awesome. Like my money just grows, and I go to take it out, and we don't have the discussion, oh, did I withhold 12% or 22%? It's just my money.
Yeah.
There's some piece about this is mine. And I think too, part of it's the delayed gratification of it hurts in the moment when you pay that big tax bill, or maybe you see your account balance drop, or you write the check to the IRS. But there's something about when you look back. I know we had some clients that they did some large conversions, 2019, 2020, and at the time it hurt. And now they look back, and the markets since then have just been.
Yeah, I think we underestimate the kind of growth that can happen with the markets just because compound interest is crazy. So you got a $3, $4, $5 million IRA. You're like, that's more money than I ever had, and it's going to, decline in balance. And I just see all the time the market performs better than people think. And, we're due for a bear market. But I think the other side of this is this conversation can be very like fear motivated. You walk into a finance, you need to do a Roth conversion. The economy is, going to tank. And there is a lot of that. But I think that's where, again, I'm pitching tax return driven financial planning. If somebody's just on a whim looking, taking you at your advice, your income's going to be $250, and they say, let's just do a $60,000 Roth conversion. It's probably not going to be the end of the world. But if you have somebody that is reviewing your tax return and they're asking you questions about how much income you're going to have this year, that's a total different story. And I would say usually those aren't fear-based. Those are like knowledge-based, and I think can be a great thing. So I think Dave Ramsey's onto something with the paying off the mortgage and simplifying your life, and I think we're onto something too with Roth conversions, bringing a greater peace of mind to a lot of people, and especially the high net worth crowd.
Yeah, absolutely. You made me think, when's the right time to do Roth conversions? So we're due for a bear market. Maybe an episode coming up soon on, hey, when is a good time throughout the year if you see markets drop? So maybe an episode in the future thinking kind of timing wise, well, if I really want to maximize this thing, when to do that. But
yep, sure.
Good content. Well, thank you guys for joining us this morning. Roth conversions, we're passionate about it. Financial, tax return driven financial planning is kind of what we're all about, and helping ease the feeling. I think especially talking this morning about the IRS is my biggest beneficiary in retirement. It's I pass away and they're still got their hand in the cookie jar,
Yeah.
So how do we help minimize that feeling? And help people serve not only their generation, their retirement, but the next generation. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Like, subscribe, follow, all the words. And check out, I think it's over here floating behind Garrett's head this morning, but the year-end tax planning checklist is on our website. Go check it out. It's down in the description below. It's a free resource, something we put together. It's the things that we're thinking through with our clients. So a lot of the people I think consuming our content, or maybe a DIYer or somebody that's like, hey, I like doing this on my own. Go check it out. Think through it, how we're thinking through it, and then give us feedback. Say, hey, this is great. I really like this. Or, hey, have you guys thought about this? And we'd love to engage with people and really build kind of a library of educational tools and resources for those that are wanting to do tax return-driven financial planning.
That's the goal.
That's the goal. So we're Alexandria's library here of tax return-driven financial planning. So, well, we appreciate you guys joining along with us. I think we're going to go take some cold meds and have a cup of coffee and get to work. So we appreciate you guys. This is Retirement Tax Matters. Hope you have a great day.
Yep. Thanks so much for listening to Retirement Tax Matters. As always, the ideas we share here are for educational purposes, and we do our best to get it right, but this isn't a substitute for specific tax or financial advice, because a truly effective strategy is always built around your personal situation. For more resources and to see our full disclosure, visit us at retirementtaxmatters.com.